Rather than ruminating over his physical infirmities, or perhaps complaining that God had forsaken him, or blaming his enemies for his current circumstances, he says, here's the wondrous reality. He is chained to a Roman guard. And because of that, he experiences joy, not in the pain and in the suffering itself, but he experiences joy because he has a captive audience. He has the opportunity to preach the gospel. And so his suffering brings him joy, not that the suffering itself is joyful, but that the pain and the suffering he experiences provides him with an opportunity to tell others about Jesus. In the second half of the chapter, essentially what he says is, I've given you an example. Imitate me just as I imitate Christ. Because they're concerned about his welfare and his well-being, and rather than ruminating and complaining about his circumstance, he said, this has really turned out for the sake of the gospel. This has given me an opportunity. And he said, in your present suffering, in your present persecution, that you're suffering under the hands of the Roman authorities, do the same thing. Now read with me, beginning at verse 28. And not in any way be terrified, it means startled, by your adversaries. He wasn't. Now I want you to notice verse 28, the second phrase here, which is to them a proof of perdition. But to you, it is proof of your salvation. Our suffering, are you listening? For right, Paul said, is proof of two things. The persecutor his attacks, his injury is proof. Now, stay with me here. Peter said, the Lord's not slack concerning his promise, not willing that any should perish. And Paul is not saying, you're getting revenge. No, he's saying that when we suffer for standing for the right, it is evidence that he's lost, but it is also evidence that we are saved. And not in any way be terrified by your adversaries, which is to them proof of perdition, but to you